BRB UK. Worse teeth, better accents.
So, I am here today, and thank you very much for joining me to Mr. Jörg Tittel. Hopefully pronounced that right.
That's correct.
Yes, good, fine. I was nervous about that, but here we go. Right, okay, so an exciting day to get you on because we're ahead of C-Smash VRS coming out, but also you've released The Last Worker quite recently, and I think there was a spin-off game for that you released shortly afterwards as well, basically. So you've been a busy game developer lately.
Yeah, it's been a bit crazy. I mean, the Last Worker is a game that's been in development for a few years. Super ambitious project. Big beautiful cast. People including Jason Isaacs and Zelda Williams and Tommy L. Jenkins and David Hewlett and Olafur Darri Olafsson in the lead, incredible Icelandic actor, and I forgot someone. I definitely Claire Hope Asherty, who is brilliant and a dear friend. So great cast, great developer Wolfenwood, great music by Oliver Krause, and the world's finest countertenor as well, Jakub Józef Orlinski. I mean, the whole game has been a labor of love, an extremely difficult one to make in the middle of a pandemic as well.
Yes, yeah, getting all the voice actors to do their contributions and stuff might have been one thing, but like getting everything else pulling that together in a crisis, that must have been a bit of a challenge.
It was hard. It was really emotionally taxing. It's not an easy game to sell and describe to people, but we've got amazing reviews, a lot of respect for it. I hope it will continue selling and selling more. Actually, it's one of those games that is a slow burner in a way in terms of how it's, because it relies on people going like, oh, did you play this thing? It was like really, it's almost more like a book in a sense. It doesn't, it's one that will rely on continuous word of mouth, rather than instant impact.
And it's a very story-based game, even though there is some sort of game mechanics to it. And as you say, like there's like some really heavy-hitting voice actors in there as well. That against C-Smash VRS, they are two very different approaches to VR games. You've got one that is a very narrative-driven, voice-acted. And as I said, it's got a game element to it, but it's kind of heavy on the narrative side, and the mechanics of the game almost play into the narrative and almost there to serve the narrative. Whereas when you come on to C-Smash VRS, it's a futuristic sports game that is almost devoid of story, although there might be a little bit in the setup of the universe, which I'll plug you on in a minute. Has that been a good thing, having those two very different things, or has that been a difficult balancing act to juggle between the two, basically?
To me, it's been a great thing, and also to the wonderful people at Wolfenwood, who I've made both games with. And so Ryan Bousfield and his team of just amazing people. To us, like working on C-Smash was almost like a vacation. Because it's about pure mechanics, about pure fun, it's about pure gameplay. And also because it's so visually stripped down to its essence, it felt like a palette cleanser. Because with The Last Worker, every single texture in the game is hand painted. It's a vast world. It's like, it's combined with a team of 10 people, like with freelancers on The Last Worker, which is tiny. And to build this a massive space or a collection of spaces and robots and characters and animations and everything was crazy. So to then reduce everything to its essence with C-Smash has been really relaxing, despite the added workload. Because we're idiots, but no, it's I love it. And also, like, the other thing about C-Smash as well is that after a long day at work, even working on C-Smash, we very often catch ourselves playing C-Smash. Which is the first time in my life where I've actually enjoyed sort of playing my own or sort of or engaging with my own content, to be crass about it, at home. So I think that when we started doing this, realized I think we're really onto something. That it's when you feel this is we're extremely proud of The Last Worker. It's a beautiful game. I'm very proud of it. It was like the only games, in competition at the 70th Venice Film Festival. It's a game that's done amazing things for us, gained us a lot of a lot of respect from people, a lot of praise. We've learned so much. And with C-Smash now, we have this thing that's just bringing joy, just pure joy, also to ourselves, which is unique because we haven't felt that for a while, I think.
But yeah, that's one thing I wanted to actually ask you about as well. I think with you having a demo come out already and The Last Worker already out and C-Smash VRS on the way, that means you're probably one of the most experienced PSVR 2 developers currently on the planet. How has that experience been for you, and what's that been like sort of developing for PSVR 2 before it was actually released as well?
I'm actually probably the least experienced developer in the world, despite having 2 games out, because I've been completely relying on the incredible talent of mostly Wolf and Wood, my dev partners on this, to make both The Last Worker and C-Smash VRS. But yeah, no, we've been part of the PSVR 2 sort of journey and adventure since pretty much the very beginning. I mean, we received our development kit I think March or April last year. So we've had our hands on this gorgeous piece of hardware for a while, and working with PlayStation is a delight. I mean, it is. They are, they have a great development support team, and they've been extremely receptive to feedback and input and questions, and so it's been great. I mean, it's a beautiful headset too, and despite the naysayers, it's actually selling really nicely. I mean, I actually had to challenge the guy from Bloomberg, whatever his name is. I forgot him now. Sorry. But I challenged him today on Twitter, going I think instead of just pretending that negative and actually damaging article 3 months ago didn't happen, or 2 months ago, whenever that was, it might just be good to say sorry.
Sorry, we were wrong.
Suck. Right.
Yeah, I'm going to have to question my sources a bit more in future, or something. Yeah,
it was actually very scary for us developers. What these sort of clickbaity journalists don't think about is that these kind of tweets have real impact. So, for instance, for a developer like ourselves, at the time we had 2 games, about to come out: The Last Worker and, of course, now C-Smash. To suddenly learn that the hardware that we're focusing so much of our attention to might be a flaw. Right? Is incredibly demoralizing.
Obviously.
I didn't believe it, and I also didn't want to believe it. And I talked to my friends at PlayStation and contacts at PlayStation and asked them whether this might be true, and they would say, "Nope, I can tell you with confidence it isn't."
Okay.
But then, of course, you start thinking, but why didn't they sort of voice anything to say anything to the contrary and stuff? And then you realize, if they have to respond to every single rumor, and nonsense, then, they'd be doing this all day. But it's strange. But anyway.
Yeah, I do think it might have been a good move to come out and say something at that point. But we literally, in the last day or so, got new confirmation that they sold twice as many headsets as the analysts were talking about in that time period. So, and they're tracking ahead of the original PSVR 1 sales, tracking ahead of any plugged in, at least the slight qualifier there, of any plugged-in VR headset, it's tracking above sales for anything of that. As long as it's being PSVR 1, that's probably the best indicator, because other headsets are a bit more expensive that are plugged in. But as far as a developer, is the 600,000 figure, is that a comfortable figure? Does that make you feel less nervous about backing the headset? That puts you in a good position, I'm guessing.
I've never been nervous. I've never been nervous about backing the system. I think it's a gorgeous piece of hardware.
Yeah.
600,000 people. If 10% of 600,000 people want to play your game, you're happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I've always believed that it's better to be a big fish in a small pond than the other way around. Or even better, I want to be a hippo that jumps into the pond and it has a splash around.
Occupies the pond.
So,
but yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that doesn't get talked about with VR and the sales of headsets, particularly. From my mind and what I've spoken to other people that own the headsets as well, and I think this has been backed up by sales figures, that the attach rate for VR gamers is pretty high, and much higher on PSVR 1 and probably on PSVR 2, I would guess at this stage, than it is on Quest as well.
I think the attach rate is higher with PSVR and PSVR 2 because of the cable. because it's attached to the console.
Yeah. But I mean, the attach rate in terms of number of games bought per headset is going to be high, basically.
Yeah, but but yeah, I'm sure it's, you know what, I mean, the one thing is, I am frankly just a little bit bored by people asking me whether VR is going to take off and do you think they've sold enough units and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like people asking me, do you think theater will take off? I'm like, I don't know.
Who knows?
I mean, I've done a bunch of stage shows. I've done stage shows.
Yeah.
And I packed the theaters and
yeah, that's all you care
I
about.
was happy. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not here to sell hardware. That said,
right,
every day, literally every day, we get tweets of people saying that they're going to buy a PSVR 2 to play C-Smash VRS.
Yes.
And
that makes you feel good. Yeah.
Like, to know that I am selling hardware.
Yeah.
Like this expensive, like luxurious piece of gaming hardware with our independent game based on a quote unquote obscure Dreamcast game. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
And so that makes me happy.
Now that leads me on to one question that I'm very keen to ask you because I really want to know how this works. How do you go about, because anyone doesn't know, C-Smash VRS is based on an old Dreamcast and I believe an arcade game called Cosmic Smash. Now, that wasn't a widely known game in the UK, basically. Yeah, it's a thin camera, so I can't see what's over your shoulder. But I think you're pointing to the.
There is.
Oh, is that the arcade machine behind you?
Cabinet
right there. Okay. But yeah, like I'm really curious as to what attracted you to this property in particular, and how you would go about reviving a game that isn't widely kind of known outside of, hardcore Dreamcast and arcade enthusiasts.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I never use the word property because it makes me think of apartments and old houses.
Yeah.
But I know that we've all started adopting this
IP.
We've all started adopting this. Yeah, I mean, when I hear IP, I think of the mannequin piss baby in Brussels, the one that's holding his little wiener. And that's what I. But it's like, and if only it were intellectual, that would be great. But it never is. So, but it's so that's one thing. But the other thing is, property. No, I fell in love with this game back in 2001 when it came out 5 months after the Dreamcast had been officially discontinued. So
right, okay.
And it only came out in Japan. So, but it had this beautiful, beautiful case. I can show you. Do you want to see the case?
Yeah. Let's see the case. Yeah. If you've got it.
Hang on one sec.
Okay. This won't be very good for any of our audio listeners, but this will give you an extra reason to come and actually have a look at the video side of things as well. Not only have we got the arcade cabinet, but also
headphones and
the case.
So that was the case.
Oh, nice.
Right, and so you had this gorgeous reverse disc setup in here as well, where the disc is orange.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the thing that was shining through the front. So they inverted the disc case and stuff to have this effect. It was gorgeous, and it's probably the one of 2 or 3 games that was released in actual sort of DVD cases as opposed to CD cases in Japan. So it was a design icon from the start as well. So absolutely gorgeous, and so the reason I found out about it because I had done an interview, because I was working as a game journalist back then, that I was writing for the official Dreamcast magazine as well, amongst others, but out of New York. But I had interviewed Yoshitaka Amano, who's the artist behind the Final Fantasy games, and he had a studio in New York at the time. And Amano-san, I did an interview with him for Famitsu, the Japanese game magazine, and they sent me a copy of the magazine. I opened it, I read my interview with him, flipped the page, and there was a picture of this game, just a screenshot. Actually, it wasn't the cover of this. Like, it said something like Cosmic Smash and Naomi, which is the arcade hardware.
Right. Yeah.
and I was like, wow, this looks so cool. It looks so minimalist and stunning. And this was announced around the same time as Res. However, came out at the same time on the Dreamcast, but
on the PlayStation or PlayStation 2? I can't remember what Res was originally on, basically.
No, Dreamcast. Res was originally a Dreamcast game.
Oh, no, but... Right, yeah.
Yes.
But did it come up at the same time, or did it come out afterwards on the PlayStation? I think it came out afterwards. Then no, I think
afterwards.
Yeah,
way
yeah,
afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, it was
it would take another year or something.
Right. Okay.
And so I fell in love with the game just by looking at that one screenshot. Didn't want the Dreamcast to be dead, but unfortunately that was announced around that same time. And when I then picked up the game and I got an imported copy and played it, I was like, wow, this is beautiful. And this incredible combination of blockout and squash or tennis and 3D in this like futuristic environment akin to like Stanley Kubrick's 2001 or perhaps Michael Jackson's Scream video, which had come out a couple of years before that.
Right,
With Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson in a duet. Awesome video, check it out. And so I fell in love with it, played it, and I immediately thought back then I would want to play this in VR.
Okay.
Because back in 1993, Sega was going to release their first VR headset. Called Sega VR. Yeah. Look it up. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it looks incredible. Like if you Google Sega VR, you will see a headset that looks like it was released yesterday.
Okay.
And they were completely ahead of their time. And it was going to cost $200. It was going to be powered, so to speak, by the Genesis or the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
And one game that was in development for it was Virtua Racing VR.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So Virtua Racing was originally going to be a VR-powered game as well.
Ah.
But then Sega of America probably saw some kid vomit or something. And then they said, like, no, we can't do that because we'll get sued. And so they canceled this headset that they'd announced the price of even.
Yeah.
So to me, it was always like, I always live in this sort of, I feel like we're living in an alternate reality, the sort of worse reality, the one where Mark Zuckerberg is the guy that we associate.
Mark Zuckerberg and
but I don't want it to be
Elon
Zuckerberg.
Musk,
I want it to be Suzuki.
Okay.
Yeah. I want it to be Suzuki and not Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
I want it to be Mizuguchi, right? And so for me, Sega is the forever VR company because I mean they also had the first VR headsets in the arcades, right? I mean they actually did arcade VR experiences.
And I remember trying that back in the 90s, basically. Yeah.
And when I first sat down in an Outrun cabinet back in 1986 as an 8-year-old kid, and my feet could barely reach the pedals, it was a VR experience.
Right.
I mean, I was sitting inside of the headset, but that's what the arcade cabinets were. They were VR.
Yeah.
Right? So yes, anyway, so that was my thought in 2001. I want to make this one day as a VR game. And it sort of resided somewhere in the back of my head for a while. And when we started working on The Last Worker and the world was coming to an end with the pandemic and everything else, at that point I was thinking, life is too short. I want to make that too. And so that's how that started.
I mean, I was a big fan of the Dreamcast back in the day. I loved my Dreamcast, and it was really, like you, I was really sad to see its decline, possibly due to piracy was one of the major problems there and all that stuff, although there were other problems with sports games and lots of things that kind of factored into that. I'm glad that kind of lit a fire for you that didn't go out over all the years in between, because, we've got I think you got something special on your hands, and I'm not knocking Last Worker because that was fun and I liked it. I really liked the graphical style, really liked the voice acting and stuff like that. There's some really good things that you can rightly be proud of in that. But I think you've got something really special on your hands with C-Smash VRS. Is that something that you're feeling as well? That there's a nice groundswell of support for the game, even like with the demo coming out and people getting more hands on with it and stuff.
Absolutely, it has a different energy to it, and I'm equally proud of both games.
Yeah.
But every game is a different, or every creative project that you do is a different child, and you're proud of them all, and you love them all, and they all have their different paths in life and a different personality. You know, you might have this one kid who's like popular with everyone and it's just like making everyone smile, and the other one is more the dark brooding type. I think The Last Worker is the dark brooding type.
Okay.
But who occasionally makes you laugh with a very sarcastic joke,
right? Yeah,
and then lights up a cigarette and gets a tattoo. You know, you go like, all right, you do your thing, babe.
Yeah.
But C-Smash is just the most fabulous person, you know. Because it's just joyful to hang out and to be at your best inside that game. It's like I feel like we're all at our best inside the game. It doesn't matter your skill level.
Yeah.
It's like yesterday PlayStation launched this video we put together with a couple of pro tennis players.
Yes.
that, the tweet announcing it has been viewed like 800,000 times. It's insane overnight. And it's like, and it's just no one knows these guys really. They're pro tennis, but they were actually at some point the number one world champion sort of touch tennis players. So I didn't even know what touch tennis was until now, really. But I'm a squash player myself. But it's just joyful to be inside of it. It's like it's fun. It's fun to dance inside of it. It's fun to hang out inside of it. And you don't have that sort of competitive stress feeling that games give you, regardless of whether they're a single player, sort of Tomb Raider-esque AAA, whatever game, or a sports game, or a roguelike, or whatever. Everything tries to kill you all the time, or everything tries to beat you all the time. It's always just us versus them, us versus him, them, her. It's a toxic relationship that we have in games. I feel, and while I enjoy being sort of stressed inside a game occasionally, I feel that life has become so freaking stressful.
You want an escape from that, basically.
Yeah, actually, no. I actually don't want to escape. I think all the other ones, because everyone else wants to escape, or sell escapism. I want to travel somewhere.
Right. Okay.
That's we want people to actually decide to go somewhere to feel good, and that's traveling. That's not escaping. It's a huge distinction for me.
And you've picked an outer space kind of minimalist squash court as the setting for that, basically. But it's not it wouldn't have been my first pick, but it definitely works for the purpose, basically.
Well, it's funny because with The Last Worker we built a dystopia, and while it's colorful and full of humor and wit, I hope, and ingenuity and craft, it is a dystopia.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately just a reflection of the dystopia that we're already living in, which is the one dominated by big tech and automation and everything else.
Yes.
It's just that. It's just a bit more fun.
Yeah. And you can definitely see the commentation on society and capitalism, and kind of, it's a future that we could easily be heading towards, unfortunately. Like a dystopian future we could be easily heading towards and treading on the path to go to. But
yeah, I think we're in it already.
Yeah, possibly,
I think we're in it already. I think I've just held up a not so distant mirror to society with it. But with C-Smash we wanted to build a utopia, and we wanted to make you feel really great at the edge of space and time. And while the universe itself is also unforgiving, and we may be hurtling towards our end, like, let's feel good and be good to each other while we are hurtling through space. And that's the feeling that we're capturing with C-Smash.
One of the things that I think really helps underpin that and really helps create the right atmosphere that we were talking about on the way into the game is the absolutely banging soundtrack. There's no way I'm letting you get away without us talking about that for a minute as well. So what's kind of influenced the type of music that you wanted to have in the game?
Well, I mean, the original game had an incredible electronic soundtrack. Mm-hmm. I tried to track down some of the original musicians, but wasn't lucky with it. And at the same time, I've known and been a massive fan of Kenny Shi for a long time. Ken, of course, also contributed to Res, which is, of course, or Res Infinite, as it's known in the VR world, which is a stunning game, of course.
Yeah.
And so Kenny Shi is someone I adore, and I approached Ken and asked him whether he would like to contribute tracks to original music to C-Smash, and he agreed. So he was part of the project ever since even Wolf and Wood came on board. So he agreed to be part of this adventure. And then in the process of us sort of setting up the project, I fell in love with this band called Soccer 96, and then discovered and then loved them. Actually, one of their songs called "I Was Gonna Fight Fascism" is in The Last Worker, actually, and their leading man, or one of the leading men, Danalog, is his name, is his artist name. I reached out to him on online and asked him whether he would want to make music for a game.
Yeah.
And so we met up because he has another band called The Comet Is Coming. Quite a fitting name
that works.
for someone working on C-Smash. And they're an incredible band. I mean, the Comet is Coming is a pretty huge band, actually. They've been touring the world. This week they're in Brazil. Last week they were in Spain. They're all over the place. They're with Universal Music Group. And great. Like, I really encourage all your listeners and yourself to listen to The Comet is Coming. It's an incredible band.
Okay, I'm going to put that on my Spotify list.
I need this guy. Oh, yeah. And so I needed to have them on the album. And then Danlog said, I'll do it. I'll I won't do it. The Comet is Coming. It's going to be me and a bunch of guest artists.
Okay.
Because that way I could be even more flexible with the style and do things that I haven't done before. And my God, has he created some tracks for this? Like, you haven't even heard half of it. Like, we'll be launching half. You haven't heard. You have heard like 1% of the music so far, but it's we'll be like launching and unveiling a new track, for instance, at the Future Games show in a couple of weeks' time. So you'll hear it then. So yeah, the music is stunning, and what's stunning about this music too, like speaking of traveling and speaking of like feeling good in yourself and with others, is that I collect video game music. I'm a massive nerd, but and I will have my sort of original, Outrun soundtrack on vinyl, like from the first vinyl pressing in Japan and stuff. I do that, right? But I probably won't be listening to the Outrun soundtrack while driving through like London with the windows down. I'd get beaten up. And but I will listen to the C-Smash soundtrack with the windows down. And the speakers way up. It is genuinely the freaking coolest music ever. And I tested this a couple of weeks ago. We were in Dubrovnik at the Reboot Develop Blue conference in Dubrovnik, which is the greatest game conference in my view, professional conference, and in stunning Croatia and Dubrovnik. And there they flew Kenichi out. It's something I set up with the festival, with the conference, which was amazing. And he performed in old Dubrovnik. It's incredible old walls of Dubrovnik where Game of Thrones was shot and stuff.
Oh, nice.
And he performed for 4.5 hours in front of 2,000 people. And he played a few tracks from C-Smash. And there was a few tracks that people already knew. He also played a few disco classics. He also played tracks that he'd written for the Pac-Man sort of revival album, or anniversary album and stuff, the 40th anniversary a few years ago. So it was an eclectic night. And, and then he put the C-Smash songs on. And he was wearing a jumpsuit with the C-Smash logo on the back. And people went crazy for it.
Well,
and I was like, and they didn't know these tracks. There was no association. They didn't even know that this logo was associated with the game. It just looked cool, right?
Nice.
And they freaking loved it. And I was like, okay, this worked. Like, this is good. And so everything in this game we've done not to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whenever someone did so, I was like, do you think this is cool? I was like, nah, drop it.
Yeah.
Like, we want to pare everything down to its essence. Everything has to be essential.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be iconic. So, and that's been our goal. And I think that's why it feels so solid as well to be inside of it, and so relaxing.
Is there a technical advantage to the graphical style? Like, does it help with latency in any way? Or is it just that's what you picked and that's what you went with? And if there was a graphical style that appealed to you more, you would find ways to deal with it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we did it with The Last Worker. I mean, The Last Worker is running like perfectly on the Switch, like and even on the Quest, which is technically one switch, like sending its graphics to pump the graphics out to two different eyeballs.
Right. Yeah.
We're running smoothly on that. So, and that's all testament to the talent at Wolf and Wood, but. So no, we didn't choose the style for technical reasons, purely for aesthetic reasons. And yes, I wanted to, from the very beginning, to make something less but better.
Okay.
So less but better is an old adage, sort of created by or voiced by Dieter Rams, who was a German designer for Braun, and he did those wonderful Braun sort of devices, which then were the main influence on Johnny Ive, who did all the sort of Apple sort of products that we know now. And so he essentially stole from Dieter Rams' designs to do his iPods and everything else. Honestly, I mean, it's uncanny. If you just do a Dieter Rams and Apple sort of Google, search, you'll see that, Jesus Christ, like they literally took all the stuff. But so we didn't take any of the actual designs, but the philosophy is incredibly sound. And we applied this to everything. We want the game to be boiled down to its essence, because that's what fun is.
Okay,
that's what fun.
Yeah. And I think you've definitely done a good job of doing that from what I have seen. Basically, just from the small bit of music they've seen, the demo and stuff. Also, something I spoke to you about at WASD when I ran into you there, basically when you were showing off the game. You told me about one of the modes that we didn't know about yet. Now, I haven't publicly said this to anyone else. I've kept your secret up till now, but I was wondering if you can speak about any of the other, because a lot of people may not realize this, but there's a game mode that's in the demo that is multiplayer. There's another game mode that's in there that is single player. You did tell me there's a lot more single player content to come, but you also hinted at one of the other multiplayer modes, because I said that the name that you'd given to the one that was released, which I think is Firewall, there was another mode called Firewall.
No,
and
Clash.
Or is it Clash? Is it Clash the one that's out now? And
yes,
then Firewall
Clash
is the one
is the standard one that's in there.
Right, and I thought that
Yes.
Firewall sounded like a better name for the Clash mode that was already out. So I was confused what Firewall was, and you clued me into that a little bit. Now, is that something you can share with a wider audience of our listeners as well, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So Firewall. You're going to have a wall between you and the other player. And you have to essentially turn it to your color.
Right.
The more you turn it to your color, the closer it comes to you.
Right.
So it's a really, really fun sort of tag of war kind of mode. Then we also have a mode that we've already unveiled on Twitter and other socials called Body Smash.
Right.
Where you are in a super narrow, longer kind of corridor.
Okay, yeah.
And there you each have a ball, and you can't have any of the two balls hit you.
Right.
So it's pretty frantic. And, and it's a mode that we play like crazy, and we sweat like mad, and we laugh like idiots, because it's extremely fun.
There is nothing that has made me sweat in my PSVR 2 headset more than the C-Smash VRS demo so far. So the fact that there's an even more sweaty mode coming in, I'm going to have to buy some sweatbands.
No idea. Oh, you have no idea. It's insane. That mode, I mean, honestly, Body Smash is so nuts, because you've got two balls coming in. You have to dodge them with your body, or else they're shooting them back. You start screaming insults to each other, probably, but please be nice when you play.
Yeah.
But it's extremely fun.
Okay. I think we saw footage of that the two tennis players were playing as well. Was that right? There was definitely a mode that had two balls in, so I'm assuming that's that.
Yes. That's it. Yeah. And there's a bunch of other modes that we haven't announced yet. And there's also the single player journey mode is beautiful and epic, and it takes you to places you couldn't imagine.
Okay, that's nice. That was the one big surprise from the demo, that I wasn't expecting there to be such a big single player content to it. I thought the single player content would just be like training modes for the multiplayer game, but that it seems like it's its own game within itself. It's almost a kind of exercise puzzle game type of thing.
Yes, it is. It's a literal journey, and it takes you to the edge of space and time.
Ooh, okay. Well, I look forward to that journey very much. And I look forward to the game. Anyone doesn't know, and I think PlayStation got the date slightly wrong when they said this yesterday, but I believe it's coming out June 23rd. Is that correct?
Yeah, they got it. Someone got excited and got it a day early. I think it was probably because maybe on some weird system, maybe in Australia, maybe the 22nd or
possibly,
something. I have no idea what happened there.
Hey, they're wishing your game out a day earlier, but hey. But people can get hands on the 23rd of June, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the trailers say the 23rd. It's fine.
Yeah.
People it's fine. I think they'll forgive us.
Generally,
forgive them. It's not our fault. But yeah, no, it's coming. And what else is exciting? Yeah, there's and then there's also some other modes that will be releasing within a few weeks of the original game as well, potentially. I mean, maybe.
Oh, okay.
What if we had a whole roadmap lined up and the game just continued growing?
Oh, now that would be properly exciting. That I wasn't necessarily expecting, but yeah, now that you said that as well, I'm even more excited for the launch of the game. Basically,
no, the game is going to continue growing. They're going to it's going to continue growing, hopefully with our audience. But I mean, we have it was born out of a game that was not given the chance to become big hit that it should have been, because the Dreamcast was discontinued at the time.
Yeah.
And now we are making a game that is actually, it seems to be a PSVR 2 system seller, because a lot of people said they've pre-ordered a PSVR 2 to play our game, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
So it's exciting. It's like, we're definitely on.
Just quickly, because there's one other thing I realized I wanted to ask you before we sign off, but there was a game called Sparc that was on the PSVR 1 that isn't the same, but had some similar properties in terms of being a futuristic sport one-on-one with a bit of a squash-like element and a back and forth kind of racket sport element to it. Did the lack of success for that game play on your mind at all? Because that was shut down a bit earlier than people liked by CCP, and they seemed to pull away from VR after that. Is that something that plays on your mind at all? Or do you just think if you make a good game, people will come to it, sort of thing?
I frankly wasn't even aware of Sparc.
Okay.
Up until about 3 or something months ago, when people said it's like Sparc. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I think the reason Sparc didn't do well, now having done homework about what it was they were running on CCP's fast servers. They had a sort of spectator mode or whatever, where a bunch of people could sort of log in and sort of so building lobbies like that and populating them with people, or wanting them to be popular, all that stuff costs money. It's like you have to run all that stuff. And so that made it an expensive one to run. I don't think there was a single player mode in it. I mean, I may be wrong.
No, I don't think so. From memory, it was entirely multiplayer, but I could be wrong on that. But I was a fan of the game and I liked that. So yeah, it was a shame.
It looks great. I mean, it looks really cool. It's a shame that but I think it was sort of assuming that, I mean, there's a lot of online VR games and online-only VR games that have sort of shut their servers or been sort of even taken off the stores lately, and some of them even backed by Meta and Oculus, whatever, fully. And it's a bummer. But with C-Smash, the good thing is it's ultimately quite an intimate experience. It's you versus one other player. We're not filling the lobbies. We don't have to fill the lobbies with tons of people.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a game that's also extremely fun to play on your own. So I've never had any fear that and worries.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think we're totally robust. We're completely future-proof.
Exactly. One of the things, I mean, you're a future sport. You're literally, in the future as it is already. So that'll be fine. But that's one of the things that bummed me out about that, is the fact that CCP are the people that made me a fan of VR. Like I went and saw eVR, which became eValkyrie later on, E3 years ago, and that was the thing that turned me onto VR, basically. And that was the thing that got me onto a DK2 and eventually onto the PSVR 1. And you can't even play that game anymore. And it's a real shame that that's no longer available. I definitely don't see that as the future for C-Smash VRS. I'm very hopeful that it will be here for many years to come. And and that we can go about enjoying that as of next month, as of June the 23rd, and for hopefully many years afterwards as well. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It will. We are a lean and not mean. We're very terribly loving group of people, and so we don't have to deal with the overheads and the pressures that large corporations, CCTP, might have when they have to, prove on the bottom line that their, little VR project has made millions, which would be impossible, and would have been impossible at the time. But I think, looking at how our game is tracking so far and how much love it's getting from the community and stuff, I think we have some fun times ahead.
Cool. Well, I look forward to diving in myself and getting hands-on with the full game, all the different modes, all the music, and everything else that goes with it. So thank you very much for your time today, and good luck with the launch, and I look forward to it and seeing it, and I hope it's a big success for you when it does launch.
Thank you very much, Tim, and thank you all for watching, and play the demo, and wishlist and pre-order the game at C-SmashVRS.com.
Your ears. are quite welcome. For the podcasting goodness that you just heard, why not roll on over to BigRedBarrel.com for more podcasts, news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarrel.com.
If you run out of oxygen, your head explodes for some reason. Not quite sure how that works. So yeah, that's the only slightly annoying bit.
I thought you were supposed to be a doctor, Dan.
No, that's not how hypoxia works, Tim.
Okay.
I really don't want to go into this in detail.